Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 394 of the Juicebox Podcast. On today's show, Kari is here. And Kari has wisdom beyond her years. More on that in just a second. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Omnipod, the tubeless insulin pump. You can find out more about the Omnipod and receive a free, no-obligation demo of the pump in your home by going to myomnipod.com/juicebox. Today's show is also sponsored by the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. Dexcom.com/juicebox is where you're going to learn more about the device that we use here in our home to make great decisions about insulin.
It's early here.
Where are you at?
Seattle.
Oh my God. Is it 6 o'clock in the morning? Or?
It is, because I wasn't expecting everybody in my house to be home with the whole COVID thing.
Gotcha.
So I thought, oh, this would be great. My husband would be at work, but no.
Hey, you're whispering in a corner, right?
Exactly. Trying to be quiet and wake nobody up, but
I'm actually doing the same thing, and it's 9 o'clock here, so. My kids have gone to a nocturnal existence.
Yes, I know. Well, good for them.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, you're going to meet Kari in just a second, but here's a little bit about her. She's the mom of a child who has type 1 diabetes, a daughter, Amanda. And Amanda also has Down syndrome and hypothyroidism. You're going to learn a lot in this episode. Please remember while you're listening that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Please always consult a physician before making changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. Hey, are you looking for a great type 1 doctor, or do you have one to share with other people? Check out my webpage, juiceboxdocs.com. It's an ever-growing and wonderful list of practitioners that have been sent in by the listeners. And if you're looking for those diabetes pro tip episodes, they begin at episode 210 in the podcast, or you can check them out at diabetesprotip.com. Last thing, if you're listening in an app right now, please remember to subscribe. Just push that button.
My name is Kari. I've been married for almost 25 years. I've got a son that is 20, and I've got a daughter who is 18, who is a type 1 diabetic, and was also born with Down syndrome.
You've been married for, hold on a second. What year were you married?
95.
Ooh, you have me by a year.
Oh.
Well done.
Thank you.
Although you rolled right into that second kid. We waited.
Yes, we did roll into that second kid, and we were thinking about maybe having 3, but yeah, the 2 kind of stopped us.
Yeah, we got stopped. Very similar situation. May I be bold and ask, the Down syndrome stopped you?
Well, it kind of did, but only because, I told my husband, we can have 3. I'm good with 3, but I need her to be walking because I didn't want to have the toddler and the carrier and a newborn, And so she started walking around 3, and by 3, the 5-year-old wasn't napping, and I don't know, we just kind of went, ooh, do we want to start over? Are we good?
Hey, listen, I had a very similar conversation with my wife. Our children are almost 5 years apart because I said, that one needs to be heading to kindergarten. I said, it'll be cool if he's around for the first year when the baby's, sort of like a big potato. Then it's easy, but
right.
And I'd like him to be able to connect with the next child, whatever it ends up being. I was like, but as soon as that kid starts moving around, it becomes more trouble. I'd like the other one to be in school, if that's okay. That's how literally one of 2 things we've planned in the entire time we've been together was exactly when to have Arden.
Right.
For that very reason, because of my concern that it would be difficult as I was the stay at home. Like my wife would have been like, here, take it. It's fine.
Exactly.
I'm 48 and last night she's like, we should have another baby. She wasn't being serious. She saw a baby on television. And I was like, see how free and easy she can say that? Because what she would do is like, hand it to me and then be
here.
like,
Exactly.
here, I got you that baby you asked for while you were watching TV 9 months ago. No. That's not what I said. No one said that. Anyway.
Exactly.
So your son, well, I guess in the moment, everyone's home, right?
Everyone's home. Yeah, my son is a sophomore in college. And then Amanda, who's the 18-year-old, is a senior in high school.
Okay. So my sophomore in college, I walked in to say goodnight to last night, and he's got this, I don't know how to describe it. It's sort of like a Foot Locker in his bedroom, but it has one of those raised up tops. So you ever see those coffee tables where you can raise the top towards the sofa?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's got a like a Foot Locker in his bedroom like that, right? And so it's next to his bed. It's been drug across the room, and it's been lifted up to go along the side of the bed. And there are drinks on it and snacks. And he's asking me, 20 years old, how do I get Disney Plus on this TV?
Yes,
and
I hear you.
And I just started laughing at him. And he's like, what? I'm like, nothing. You look comfortable. That's all. What I was thinking was, I haven't been that comfortable in 30 years, but that's fine.
I know. I feel like all I've been doing is cooking since he's walked in the door.
100%. And he wants to be on his own schedule with the cooking. I was like, this isn't school, man. This isn't the mess. I was like,
right.
You can't roll up on me at 1 in the afternoon and be like, what's for breakfast? Because breakfast was 5 hours ago. But I actually, at the end of our conversation, told him, I said, I'm really sorry about, you missing out on school this year. And, his baseball season got canceled and everything. But we've been going out to this, piece of grass where nobody goes around here and throwing and hitting. And I mean, if I'm being honest, from my perspective, it's been very nice. So
yeah,
I'm sure he's like, I can't believe I have to play baseball with this old man, but I like it. Anyway, okay. So your daughter's finishing up high school from home too. Is that a bummer?
Well, we have been homeschooling for about 7 years. Oh. So this is no different for her. Yeah. Starting in about middle school, the special ed department and I didn't hit it off. So
gotcha.
I had pulled her. Yeah. We had pulled her from school in about 6th grade. So this is normal for her. She's just thrilled that her brother's home and
yeah, I see that.
It's all good for her.
It's Arden's
She's rolling with it.
Arden's on spring break, which is amazing that they gave them spring break. I pulled my wife aside and I was like, they never would have done this for us. If this happened like 40 years ago, they would have been like, spring break, you're already home. Shut up and keep working. But
I know.
But she's been working on her clothes. She likes to design clothing, so she's been doing that. But I have one question, and then I'm going to jump backwards for a minute. How old was your daughter when she was diagnosed with type 1?
She had just turned 17. So we've only been in it a little over a year.
Okay. Is there any sign of type 1 diabetes through your family?
There is not. We have some type 2s, but no type 1s. I did not realize. So my daughter was born with hypothyroidism.
Okay.
Which now I know is an autoimmune issue. And so I guess autoimmune issues tend to be more prevalent in people with Down syndrome.
Okay.
But does not necessarily mean type 1. So I've only met a handful of people online that have Down syndrome and type 1. So it's not just super prevalent, but people with Down syndrome tend to have more autoimmune issues in general.
Kari, you've been screwed when you're in an online chat group with 6 other people for health reasons. You're just like...
Exactly. You're like, well, this is fun.
Yeah. So it's us, huh, guys? All right.
I know.
Yeah. Nobody get bored. Everybody has to keep coming.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I want to go backwards and try to understand, because your email to me, it struck a chord when I read it. Because, and listen, you've listened to the podcast long enough. I'm just going to say what I'm thinking, right? Like, we're not going to
of course,
dance around. And I'm assuming you wouldn't be here if that was the case. Listen, back when malls were a thing and we were allowed to go outside with other people, I would you forever see an adult with Down syndrome whose parent is with them, and their parent, you can't even decide how old they are. Like you look at them and you're like, I think that lady's 110, and I always remark to my wife, and I think of this as a very loving thing. I always think that woman just probably feels like she can't die. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. I have to stay here as long as I possibly can. And I want to know what that's like. Like I really want to understand before we get to the diabetes, what it's like for you as her mother and what it's been, I want to know what it was like in the beginning, in the earlier years, and how it's progressed through time and what your responsibility actually looks like. Do you think you can talk about that?
Yeah. I would agree with you. We do feel a tremendous amount of responsibility, and the world is a really scary place for somebody that's that vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So you kind of feel like you have to be their sounding board and she's amazing. My daughter is funny and adorable, and we joke that she could run for mayor because she's just greets everybody and, hi, how are you? And, but she doesn't have a whole lot of decision-making skills that are great. So, in a world that you don't even want to send her out the door by herself, it's hard. Yeah. And it's hard to think about the future where somebody could potentially, absolutely take advantage of her.
So in like real terms, if she came up to me and was friendly and I had designs on doing something wrong to her, I could be friendly back to her and then just suggest that she and I go somewhere. And
oh, absolutely. Okay, I see. And she'd be like, sweet.
Yeah. I met a new friend.
Yeah, let's do it. Yes. Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see.
So that's, and it's scary as a parent.
No, I listen, I have a son who doesn't have Down syndrome, and I sent him out the door and felt almost exactly the same way, except my feelings were reasonably baseless. I was just worried.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I wasn't
right.
Yeah. There wasn't a real thing I was concerned about. You have a real thing. So tell me what that looks like in public. Are you you're with her constantly, I would imagine.
Constantly, yes. Okay. Yeah.
And is that at any point, is it something you've like given yourself over to? Because I'm assuming there's a fair amount of your life that you've, usually we talk about back burnering our lives while we're being parents, but there's no back burner for you. Do you give it away? How do you handle it in your mind?
Yeah, in my mind, that is exactly what you do, because what is the option? I mean, I can't sit around I will tell you that when my son left for college, that was kind of it was like a reminder, almost a slap in the face, like, oh, this is what it could have been like for her. And, like my husband and I actually like each other. We wouldn't mind being empty nesters at some point, and it was just kind of like, oh, no, remember, this is reality. Nope, she's going to be here and it's just the three of us.
Now, I'm not talking about intellectually, just your level of responsibility. What age would most of us who have been kids relate to your day-to-day activities with her? Like, is she, you know what I mean? Like, is it like being with a 10-year-old? Like that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, no, she can, well, I say she's a really odd mix of an 18-year-old. I mean, she absolutely has an attitude and would like to be, on her own and do things independently. Like I do still kind of help her shower so she can get in, she can turn the water on, but just motor wise, she doesn't do a great job washing her hair.
Gotcha.
I still have to prepare food for her. She can't, she could make like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with a little bit of assistance. But she's super petite. And so like, she can't even reach our microwave. I wouldn't trust her with a microwave anyway. But like, she can feed herself and she can toilet herself. And, so it's not, I wouldn't say it's hands on the whole time, I don't even know what age to put her at, but I'd say probably 10-ish.
Gotcha. And then what's her level of self-awareness about her situation?
Zero. Okay. She thinks, she knows she's amazing. We've told her she's amazing. She has no idea she has Down syndrome.
Right.
I mean, if you said, do you have Down syndrome? She'd look at you like, what are you talking about? Right.
And it's not because you're keeping it from her. She just doesn't see herself that way.
No, right. No, not at all.
No. It's nice actually, because the more people I talk to, the more I feel that from people. I say this a lot, but I go back to I was interviewing Sam Fold the first time, and I asked him if he was ever concerned that his kids were going to get it, and he had a response that was so similar to what you just said. Like, why would it matter if they got it? I have it. I'm a person. Do you know what I mean? Like, right. It was just a very, I don't know. What he said that moment always stuck with me. So you said she's very much like an 18-year-old. Boys?
Oh, for sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Justin Bieber, Shawn Mendes. Yeah.
I see. Is there any? Does she do any social stuff with other kids with Down syndrome?
A ton. We have an amazing support network here. So we have a group that just does social things, and then she's in a music class, and she has played baseball for the last, I don't even know how many years, probably 12. She plays soccer, swimming lessons, you name it. Yeah, she is super social, and we have a great group of kids that, I would call like kind of her core friend group.
Okay. So now I'm being serious. Is there a thought ever that one of those boys is going to ask your daughter on a date, or she's going to ask someone on a date, and they're going to say, I want to get married? And is that something you think about?
It is somewhat something we think about, but the reality of it, I think, would be very tricky. Well, especially now with the type 1.
Yeah.
Before the type 1, I would have said, very easily a kind of a group home situation, obviously with people we knew,
right?
That sort of thing. But now it's
like
a little bit trickier.
Who would do that piece, right?
Right.
I'm just, by the way, is it proper to always say Down syndrome, or is there a shortened version you use? Like, what's the word?
No, it's just Down syndrome. Yeah, there's no. I know.
Seriously.
We could just say DS maybe instead of, I don't know.
I'm thinking of like every time I referred to Arden, I was like, Arden, come here. We have to change your pump because of your type 1 diabetes. I'd be like, wow, there's a lot of words. Right. Why are we always saying that?
And we never say Down syndrome, so it's not a thing for us. So
right. But when you're discussing it outside of, like with me, I'm a layperson for this.
Right.
I was just like, I kept thinking like any second Kari's going to say like, DS, man, it's DS or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, okay. So being married in a group home situation, meaning someone taking care of the bigger things like you just discussed about washing or meal prep, you think she could have been, but the diabetes piece, it's so funny. You have the same concern every other parent with kid with type 1 diabetes has.
I know. It's very odd. And I've listened to so many podcasts because we don't really know anybody that has it. Mm-hmm. And we're still new enough that I am just trying to get as much as I can, information wise and practical living and all of that sort of thing. But, it's just mine isn't going away. It's like I got it.
Yeah, well,
versus
as far as
obviously
time.
No, but
yeah, as far as time goes, right? Yeah,
right.
Because
there's no handoff. Like there's not going to be if she's just in this grade, or if she's just this age, or if she's just
Yeah, like I'm just trying to get to this point, and you're just trying to every day.
And we don't have that point. Yeah.
I hear that. I really do.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned it a time or two, but when I first became a stay-at-home dad a very long time ago, it was not a common thing for men to do at the time. I think it's more common now and becomes more common as time moves forward. But when I was doing it, I got looked at very oddly. And I really wanted to do it, but I was, my expectation of what it was more about like functionality. Like I'll feed that person and clean those clothes. And like, it felt like a job to me when I first started doing it, until I recognized the things my son really needed that I always thought my wife would have just known to do. Do you know what I mean? That I sort of had to learn to do. And then once I was doing them, there was just this moment where I felt like, oh my God, is this the rest of my life? Am I going to get up every day and do this forever? And what are we going to have another kid at some point? I'm going to start over again. And I just had to find like real meaning in it,
for sure.
Right. In mundane things. And I always use just cleaning the house as an example, but you know, it sucks. Like the laundry sucks and cooking, and every morning of my life, I load a dishwasher and run it. Like every Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, doesn't matter. I get up, I feed those dogs. I take those dogs outside, and I say those dogs because they're lovely, except I take care of them constantly. And so they've become a task. And instead of a dog, like if somebody takes care of your dog for you, what you have is a puppy that you can, you know, but when you're the one taking care of it, you're the one outside when it's 12 degrees thinking like, oh my God, just pee on anything so we can go back inside, please. You know, and then it's the next step and the next step. And, you know, the floors need to be cleaned, and, you know, and then you have to sweep the kitchen and go grocery shopping, and none of it is fun.
Right.
And I thought one day, but it is building a solid base for my kids to grow up in. They have an expectation about cleanliness and preparedness and stuff like that. And that's really valuable to them. And I had to find real like satisfaction in that. Do you know what I mean? And I did.
I do.
Yeah. And I absolutely did. Because yesterday I realized when my son came downstairs and I was in the kitchen washing dishes, there's something comfortable about the fact that I'm there to him. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like in the back of his head, he's like, that guy's always going to be in my house doing something, supporting me. And it's sort of like a touchstone for him. And that makes me happy, but it took me a while to get to it. And I was really only having to talk myself into it on a 20-year game plan. You know what I mean? Like, I am dying to know, like, what are the conversations like between you and your husband around those sorts of things? And where did the diabetes care fall to? The Omnipod tubeless insulin pump is a mainstay in my daughter's life. She's been wearing it now since before kindergarten. See, I'm starting to lose track of the years, but she's 16 now. So for a very long time, my daughter has been wearing an Omnipod tubeless insulin pump every day. And it is an absolute friend on the journey with type 1 diabetes. I don't know if you understand the nature of tubeless or how much you understand about pumps in general, but every other insulin pump, with the exception of the Omnipod, has a piece of tubing that goes from a controller that you have to wear like on your belt or in your bra or, you know, in your pocket. And then the tubes go from that controller all the way to an infusion area on your body. Not the Omnipod, though. Omnipod is small and self-contained. It adheres, and that's it. When you want to talk to it, you just use the personal diabetes manager. Just a little PDM, and then you can put it away. You can stick it back in your purse or whatever you want to do. But it's not connected to the pump by a tube. And that gives you a lot of freedom. Freedom to play sports unencumbered or to take a shower. People with a tube pump have to disconnect their insulin to shower, to swim, but not Omnipod. You can just jump right in. The greatest part about this is that you can get a free no obligation demo of the Omnipod sent directly to you so that you can wear it and see for yourself. You do that by going to myomnipod.com/juicebox. Fill out the tiniest bit of information about yourself, and just like magic, a whoosh, it shows up at your house. The whoosh was magic, in case you were wondering. Or the mail, which is also kind of magical when you stop and think about it. Pay somebody a couple of cents and a letter shows up anywhere? That's magical. It's not quite as magical as not having to inject 3 times to eat pizza, but it's pretty close. Now, what are you going to want to complement that beautiful Omnipod that you're wearing? A Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. This thing is the next level of understanding. You're used to testing your blood sugar and seeing, hey, my blood sugar is 150. Great. Is it 150 and rising? Is it 150 and falling? Is it stable? What does this mean? Is my basal not strong enough? Should I have bolused more for my meal? I don't know what to make of this 150 number. But with the Dexcom, you see the speed, direction, and number of your blood sugar whenever you want, constantly. And you can see it right there on your iPhone or Android or on the Dexcom receiver. Let me look right now for Arden's blood sugar. Ooh, Arden just ate a little food. Her blood sugar rose a bit. She's 139, but I can see that she's coming back. So I don't feel like we need more insulin. I think we did a good job here. I can see that right here on my phone. Arden is taking her PSAT right now. How do I know that, right? How come she's not here and I know that? Share and follow. Dexcom G6 users can have up to 10 followers. They can choose a school nurse or a friend or a parent, sibling, a loved one. Or if you're a little child, mom could be watching you while you're in gym class. The possibilities are endless. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Get started today. I'm going to tell you right now, no BS. Dexcom is one of the best decisions my family has ever made. You can find out more about all the sponsors in the show notes of your podcast player or at juiceboxpodcast.com. But if you want that free demo of the Omnipod, it's myomnipod.com/juicebox and dexcom.com/juicebox to learn more about the Dexcom G6. I almost forgot. Veterans, United States veterans through the VA, Dexcom is now covered at 100%. Go to my link, fill out the form, find out more. Let's get back to Kari. What are the conversations like between you and your husband around those sorts of things? And where did the diabetes care fall to?
Well, when she was born, we just kind of embraced it. And in our conversations, well, and it sounds kind of bad, but, we'd say worst case scenario, she's with us forever. But that's not a worst case scenario for us at this point, but like in our mind, that was like, okay, if the worst thing happens, she's here.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and we do our lives with her, as a part of it. And so we've always been fine with that. Now with the type 1, I mean, even when we were in the hospital after she was diagnosed, we just kind of looked at each other like, well, our world that was kind of small just got a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
The tether got a little bit tighter. And you just kind of have to roll with it.
And for clarity and karma reasons, you've never overthrown like a sub-Saharan country, or you don't run drugs through like Guadalajara or anything like that, right? You're a decent person.
Stopped years ago, I mean,
there's not
no
you don't kill homeless people for sport, or there's nothing like that in your background, right?
We don't. No.
I mean,
no. So pretty much the care is on me. I mean, my husband's working full time.
Yeah.
He's absolutely willing to do anything, and we still soundboard off each other and, hey, I learned this. What do you think about if we try that? And, but I mean, we kind of joke that I'm a stay-at-home mom, but now I've become a stay-at-home pancreas because, I just can't go anywhere without her and the PDM and a bag of stuff,
I tell you, stay-at-home pancreas is a strong contender for the title of this episode.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There you go.
What about some of the stuff that involves your bathing? Like, does your husband stay out of that, or does it not matter? Does he?
Nope, it doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
He's all in. Gotcha. Yep, he's awesome.
Arden said to my wife the other day, she goes, even if I got a boyfriend right now, Dad's still going to be the guy that's seen my ass the most.
Exactly.
And I laughed because she wears her CGMs on her hip, and
yes.
And she's they're in a weird position, so she's like, "Can you help me put this on?" I was like, "Sure," but she's becoming a lady, and we had a short conversation about it one time. I'm like, "Are you all right with this?" And she's like, "I don't want to put it on myself." And I was like, "Gotcha, all right."
Right.
So she's like, I know I'm going to put it in the wrong place, and blah. I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "It's right here. I think you could do it." And there's going to be a day where she's just like, that's enough. You know what I mean? But at the
Right.
moment, at
Yeah.
15, she doesn't care still.
Doesn't bat an eye. Just get it done.
Just get it done. And so in your husband's eyes, she's just a little girl, and he gets to feel like that. Well, I guess there's something really nice about that, honestly.
Yeah.
Is there, do you have that thing where you're just like, sometimes like, oh, not now. Like I can't right now. And how do you manage your own health? Like, are you in super amazing shape?
Oh, I wish. Oh, no.
Because I always think that about don't you feel like the diabetes always makes me feel like I should be healthier. I should be around longer. Like you start thinking about like being alive longer, just in case Arden needs something. And then you realize like you're the person who has like the least amount of free time in the world.
I know.
You're just like,
yeah, if I took my stress out on a run, that would be amazing. But I don't. So
how do you manage it? Alcohol?
It's
Well, it's funny, I joked, but you can't even do that. Like
right?
No.
Yeah, no. I'm not a drinker, so there's not that. It's just a whole lot of being appreciative for what is going well. And when you have to think about it long term, it makes it easier, I think.
Okay.
Because, it's not like a thing. It's fine. Obviously I like to go to Starbucks and, just sit for a while. But even then it's like, I'm just constantly checking numbers and, it's hard to disconnect, especially when I feel so much responsibility.
Do you have,
it's hard to turn it off.
No, and I definitely know that. Do you ever look at your husband and just like, I'm going to leave now and I'll be back sometime and goodbye? Or,
not really. No. Maybe when the kids were younger, but I think every parent has that, when they've just kind of hit their limit, but no, not really anymore.
Gotcha. Yeah. You've settled into a real, acceptance, I guess is the word.
Yeah. No, I think so. Yeah.
And does that bring clarity to you? Does it bring kind of calm and peace? And
yeah, I think it does. Because when you just ask me that, it's like, no, I don't really lose it very often. And you'd think I would.
Because, no, you definitely think you would. I would think that, but twice a day you'd walk into another room and be like, ah.
Everyone, it's funny because once, we started with the Down syndrome and there were some issues at the beginning and then you just kind of rolled with it. And it's always been, they're a kid first and Down syndrome is second. Mm-hmm. They're your child first and then you just kind of have to deal with this. And so after years of that, then it was just like the type 1 was kind of like, well, why not? Throw it in there, And so I still feel the same way. She's still a kid. We're still trying to, keep her diet pretty much the same. We did kind of give up apple juice. That was a big one for her.
Okay.
And so after she was diagnosed, it was like, let's just leave those for Lowe's,
Right.
But I still try to think of her as she's just a kid, a young adult, if you will. But and this just kind of comes along with it, I guess.
Does she see an adult endo?
No, we are still, because she was diagnosed at 17, we were sent to the Children's Hospital.
How long are they going to let her go there?
Until she's 21.
Okay.
And then we will have to switch to an adult, which I feel like by the time she's 21, I think I'll have a really good grasp on it and be okay with that, Well,
let's find out where your grasp is right now. So when she was diagnosed, they started her off, would they give you a pen with insulin?
They did. Yeah. So we started on pens and they actually started her on metformin also. She presented very oddly and they weren't quite sure what to do with her.
Okay.
So we started on injections and metformin. And then at our 3-month follow-up, the endo, which we hadn't seen before, we didn't see him when we were in the hospital, had said, I don't think we really need the metformin. Let's take that off and let's just, replace that if she needs more insulin.
Were they thinking type 2?
I don't know what they were thinking. Okay. She just, because we obviously, like everybody else, we didn't know it was coming. Mm-hmm. And the only main symptom she had was weight loss.
Okay.
So she was not nauseous. She never told us that she felt badly. But her diet hadn't changed. I mean, I homeschool. I'm with her all the time.
Yeah.
I knew what she was eating. And we ended up at a walk-in clinic right after Christmas with a pretty serious yeast infection. And they popped her on the scale, and I looked at the number and I thought, well, that can't be right. We had her at the pediatrician maybe in August. So sometime between August and December. And she had lost like 15 pounds. And she's not just a big person.
A small frame to begin with, right? Yeah.
Yeah, she's like 4'4". I mean, she's teeny. Yeah, okay. She's teeny. And so I thought, well, that's not normal. And so they gave us the medication for the yeast infection and, have a follow-up with your pediatrician. And so we scheduled that, and I took her in for that. And I said, it was weird. I said, she's lost 15 pounds since August. And the pediatrician was like, yeah, that is kind of weird. Keep an eye on it, put her on the scale. Like, don't be weird about it, but maybe once a week, put her on a scale and see where she's at. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, I had to Google, like unexplained weight loss in kids. And the first thing that came up was diabetes and yeast infection because of all the sugar. And so I think I waited another week or so, and then I called the pediatrician again and said, it wasn't setting right with me. Mm-hmm. I thought there's really no reason for her to lose this weight. And so we went back in, and I said, I'm sorry, but I Googled it and it came up with diabetes. And she's like, she doesn't have diabetes. Like, she's got no symptoms. She would be nauseous. She would be vomiting. She would be, all of these things. And I said, well, if you're doing blood work, I said, would you just run it anyway? Just so we know. I mean, we had type 2 in the family. And even when I looked it up online, it didn't even occur to me that I knew there were 2 types, but I didn't really know the difference. And so I wasn't even scared at that point. Literally, I was thinking, oh, if it's diabetes, okay, like, we have grandparents with diabetes. They take medicine. They're fine, And so they did the blood work. We came home, and maybe an hour and a half later, she called me. She's like, how far do you live from the office? And I said, I don't know, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And she's like, okay, so her numbers came back really high. She's like, if you would, I want you to, pack a bag, because I've called the emergency room. They're going to be waiting for you, but would you swing by the office so we can do a finger prick just to double check that it wasn't a mistake?
Okay.
And
so she wanted to get you moving, but double check right before she sent you to the hospital.
But let's just be sure. Yeah. I don't think she did. Yeah. Right. And of course, I'm FaceTiming with my son who's away at school. So he's all up, he's worried, and I'm worried because I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Like, a bag? We haven't been in the hospital in years, like, she's a pretty healthy kid. And and so this was Monday morning, and we had tickets, the 2 of us, Amanda and I, to fly to Denver on Saturday morning. So here I'm worried about the trip, and so we go back into the office, they do a finger poke, and she was like 447. And she's like, well, look at that. And she looked at me and she said, you diagnosed your child. And I'm really sorry that, you kind of had to do that. And and so off we went to the emergency, we went to the hospital. And
actually, I Googled it. And is there a reason you couldn't have Googled it? Like,
I know. Well, and even when I went in that morning, she's like, I hate to say it, but, the only thing in her mind was cancer.
Okay. Because the weight loss.
Kids with Down syndrome have a higher incidence of getting leukemia, but you're typically diagnosed before you're 3. And so I didn't want to go there. I was like, oh no, we can't be dealing with that.
Is it possible your diabetes diagnosis online was hopeful? Like, you're like, it would be better if it was this than what I'm thinking?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because at the time it never occurred to me that this is what management looked like.
Gotcha.
with type 1. I was blissfully unaware.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, you're like a pill. I could do a pill. Are you kidding?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do a pill for thyroid. We're good. She can take a pill. That's no problem.
All right, I have a couple of double back questions. One of them is just because it's bothering me. You're in the upper Northwest, right?
Yes.
But are you from there originally?
No. Well, originally I'm an Army brat, so
Okay.
I was born overseas and I've lived lots of places. But my husband and I met in Denver, which is where our families are now, and we have moved up here for his job.
Were you ever in the Wisconsin, Minnesota area?
No.
No. You draw out your words. So
Do I sound like that?
well, I couldn't decide if it was if you'd been through Canada or there but it's Denver. That doesn't make any sense to me. Okay,
It's
never mind.
Denver.
All right, whatever.
Yeah.
At least I can stop thinking about it now.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you're telling me a really interesting story, and I'm like, where is she from?
Unfortunately, all over.
This just must be the blend that you picked up along the way. And then
It must be.
I need to go back and ask. You said Amanda's 4'4". Is your son?
Mhm.
Is your son? How tall is your son?
I did not bring any help into the mix. My husband is almost 6 feet. I'm about 5 feet.
Okay.
So my son is about 5'9"
Right.
and a half, kind of in between us. And then people with Down syndrome tend to be shorter in stature anyway. And so we joke that, I really didn't help with that at all.
So Amanda,
And
she's not a dwarf though.
Oh, no.
No.
No,
The height
she's just super.
Got it.
Yeah. And she was born super tiny. So that didn't help either. The pregnancy was not an easy one. And she was 2 pounds, 10 ounces when she was born.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So she has always been a little thing.
Yeah. Okay. I got it. Okay. Now I just had to wrap my head around that because when you said her height, I thought that must be a function of the Down syndrome, but I needed to ask anyway. So
yes and no. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's not very many tall people with Down syndrome at all. And I did not contribute to that part of her.
Gotcha. You drug the average backwards.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
I know my son looks at me like you were the thing standing between me and the height I want to be.
Yeah.
I don't think he's wrong. Kelly comes from a long line of tall people, so I am definitely the I'm the weak link in that chain for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So at the moment, are you using the needles still, or have you changed your management style?
We have changed to an Omnipod. We got that last November.
Mm-hmm. So
we were on injections for just under a year.
Okay. How did she tolerate the injections, by the way?
Amazing.
Okay.
I mean, I cannot even explain. She is such a rock star. She absolutely rolls with whatever's going on. And at the very beginning, I would joke that there was no way I could lose it because she wasn't losing it.
Mm.
I mean, she was just like, okay, this is what we're doing now. Not great, but okay.
I was wondering about that. Like when you said, like, if I approached her and I was kind to her, she'd go with it. Is that how she accepts the diabetes too, or not that?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, she's not ever really, she didn't love the biggest issue we had was changing out her Dexcom. She did not like having the adhesive pulled away from her skin.
Okay.
But once we figured out, Unisolve and letting it sit there, and now it just kind of falls off and she does it herself,
Mm-hmm.
We have really zero issues around the management at all with her.
Gotcha.
And I mean, I'm so grateful for it because I hear stories, of tears and throwing on the floor. And,
right.
I don't know if it's just because of her age that she's, a bit more mature, or if she literally would have been like that if we were diagnosed 10 years ago. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, chasing a 4-year-old around is one thing, but I don't want to be chasing an 18-year-old around for their
I know.
injection.
I know.
I think they would know how to get away,
I know, yeah. So no, we're doing the pump, and she seems to be fine with it. I mean, when she turned 18, we had to go through a whole guardianship thing, and this lady had to come and do an interview, and she had to talk to Amanda And, she said, I understand you have, that you have type 1 diabetes. What does that mean to you? And Amanda just pulled out her Omnipod was on her stomach, and she just kind of pulled up her shirt and she was like, right there, that's diabetes. I mean, that was it.
That's it.
It was like, do you want to know? Right there. That's what it is. So what's next? Yeah, I mean, that's her understanding right there.
Good for her.
Because now I have to wear this thing, and that's diabetes.
Yeah. Well, listen.
So,
that is, to her, that's exactly what it is. So what about her day-to-day management? Do you see a lot of lows? Do you see spikes? Like, how do you?
We see hardly any lows.
Okay.
I mean, ever, even since she's been diagnosed. I mean, like I said, I've listened to all these different podcasts and experiences, and we have a handful of lows. I mean, hardly any. We're still seeing some big rises, even with pre-bolusing. And I think, about the time we got the pump was about the time she stopped honeymooning, because we have realized, we're using a lot more insulin than we used to.
Yeah.
And so, we still see every few days, we still hit the 200 before we come back down. And I get so frustrated because I just want to master it and do the best I can for her, so I get super frustrated with that. But
well, Kari, you've got nothing but time, so
I know.
You're like a sci-fi movie of somebody who's like on a different planet and can't get home, but has enough food and oxygen. So don't worry, you've got time. You'll figure it out. You're Tom Hanks on that island. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my God.
So tell me about it a little bit. So when you say she doesn't get low and she goes 200, like, what's the range you're shooting for?
We have the alarm set for 70 for a low. Or 75, I guess. And then we kind of treat it 70 if we need to. And then our high, we shoot for anything under 140.
Oh, so you're not going under 70, 75 very often at all?
No.
Well, good for you.
It's weirdly, no. Like she never gets low.
And a bad spike is 200?
Yeah.
No kidding. That's really great, by the way. Where's her A1C come in?
Well, right after diagnosis, we had it at 6.3. Mm-hmm. And then with the pump and Christmas and Thanksgiving, we jumped to 7.2 was our last one. But right now, we have an endo appointment next week that will be by phone. Right. And her estimated on our app is 6.4.
So
we've kind of gotten it back under control.
Yeah. What it sounds to me is, it happens a lot too, is when you switch from injections to a pump, a lot of times the doctors sort of like don't have your settings as high as you need them. Do you know
I
what I mean?
agree.
Right. For your basal, probably they probably had her basal too low. And
we've increased basal. We've increased carb ratios. We kind of tend to, I don't know, in the hospital, they would always say round down, round down. Well, we always round up, I mean, yeah.
Round down. No. I'm always like, and another unit, it'll be
yeah. It'll be fine.
I really do wish people could see me with a pump in my hand, Omnipod, as an example, where you're pushing that arrow up, and because I don't use carb ratios. Like, I'm not counting carbs, then saying, the pump says this much. So I'm rolling the number up, and I stop and push the button, and Arden's like, is that how much you were shooting for? I was like, yeah, somewhere around there. It's fine.
See, and for me, I kind of do that. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I pretty much know how much insulin it's going to take, but I'm always thinking long term, and somebody's going to have to take this over at some point. And so I kind of want to stay true to at least some sort of ratios, so that
you can tell
if somebody else had to do it, it's like, no, the pump is actually right. Where, it seems like it never is, but I'm trying to get to the point where it is, where when I put in, her numbers, that is how much insulin she should get.
Well, when you come to a point where this meal is 7 units, you can engineer it backwards and change your insulin to carb ratio to meet what you know is right. Does that make sense?
Right. And that's probably, it does. Yeah. And that's probably what I should do. Math is not strong for me and I don't want to do it.
Oh, please.
Well, and I feel like I don't have to pass it off yet. I mean,
No.
we're good for at least another 30 years, but
What I'm saying is if the pump says, 1 unit for every 10 carbs, I don't know what it says, right? And it's really 1 unit for every 8 carbs, then just change the insulin to carb ratio to match what you see working.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. So, that's the doctor's just guessing when they set up your insulin to carb ratio. So you might as well go with the data that you actually have that's working for you.
Exactly.
What are her meals?
And she likes.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, she likes to eat pretty much the same things. I mean, the other morning. Yeah, well, no. But now that we're all home, it's like, oh, I'll make a nice breakfast. And, she ate. She brought me her plate. She's like, yeah, tomorrow can I just have what I normally have? Like, she wasn't impressed.
Yeah.
She was like,
stop with the fancy breakfast and let's go back to what I enjoy.
Exactly. Can I just eat what I like?
I got to be honest with you. I'm with her. I like a nice, simple meal. So did you hear online they're saying the COVID-19, the 19 is for how many pounds you're going to gain during your during
excellent. It's not the freshman 15, it's the COVID-19.
It's the COVID-19, yeah. Oh, wow, look at you. Now it's another strong opportunity for the title of this episode. But
there you go.
So she likes a nice meal that is that's simple and sort of so that's helpful to you, right? Because you can kind of figure. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. No, good. Yeah. Because after we got out of the hospital, so we got there, like I said, on a Monday night, and we stayed for 2 days, and I think on the second day, I said, we've got plane tickets on Saturday morning. Are we going to be out of here by Saturday? And they're like, oh, for sure, you'll be out of here by Saturday. And I'm like, can we fly on Saturday? And I think probably the best advice I got while we were in the hospital was, your daughter is not sick. She just needs insulin.
Right.
So the quicker you get her back to her normal, the easier it's going to be on her,
That is definitely great advice, especially from a bunch of doctors who are probably high because of the weed thing in Denver and everything. Just kidding.
Anyway, and so we the two of us got on the plane that Saturday morning and we went to Denver. And so even just I guess I was going towards even when we were there, I could keep her meals pretty much what she wanted, besides eating out. And I didn't feel any pressure at the beginning to get it right because I didn't know you had to get it right. It was just kind of like, okay, we'll try with this and see how it goes. And
what was your understanding of lows at that point? Like, did you like, that's interesting to me. Did they scare you about being low, or how was that in your head at the time?
No, they didn't really scare us about anything. I mean, the feeling I got from the hospital was just overwhelming. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how I would describe it, but no fear at all. I mean, it was just like a discussion. If they go high, if they get to 80, treat with 15 grams, wait 15 minutes, the same rule that everybody seems to get, but there was no fear around it. So But
was there also not any awareness? Did they explain to you what a low blood sugar was and what could happen?
I mean, to some extent, but no, not to like what could happen.
So you had kind of a blissful idea of like, oh, I'll give her too much or too little. The number will go too high or too low and we'll fix it. And that'll be that.
And move on. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of, it's what you have to do. I'm not a fan of you not understanding exactly, what would happen if she got too low. Going out the door.
Right.
When did you realize that? Was it like through online stuff or?
Yeah, it was, because even the first time she had a low, I honestly was like, well, do we really treat it? I mean, will it just kind of go back on its own, or should I do something,
Yeah. Because her blood sugar is always going up. Is the CGM
reading it right? Right. Yeah. I mean, it was so, yeah.
Well, it's super interesting.
But yeah. But she just hardly ever goes low. Okay. And I don't know why.
It's interesting. It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you find? I don't. I'm trying to decide what my question is around this. Long term, what are your goals around management? Like, do you feel like there's any ability to teach her any of this, or not, or no?
At this point, no. There's so much math involved, and I mean, even if she, okay, so like the other morning, I was super on it, and I pre-bolused, and I was getting breakfast together, but I got a phone call, and so by the time she was actually eating, she had gone low. And I mean, she holds up her receiver and she's like, "Mom, juice." So she does know that when it alarms low, she gets a juice. Like, she has made that connection. Yeah. But she was eating. And so I knew I didn't need to give her anything, because the food, I mean, give it 5-10 minutes, the food was going to hit her and it was going to be fine. So even in that situation, it's so frustrating because it's not black and white. Yeah. So, I mean, I can't even tell her, yes, every time this alarms, you come get me for a juice,
Unless we've just pre-bolused a little too soon and you're already eating and the food's hitting you. So
and you've already had half of your breakfast. Yeah, I mean, how do you've already had 40 of those carbs and those are working. I mean, that makes no sense to her at all.
Trust me, it barely makes sense to me in the beginning. So.
I know. I know. Yeah. And so it's super frustrating. So, I mean, like at this point, because she's a senior in high school, we're looking at doing, like, the public schools have an 18 to 21 program. And it's like a transition program. So they get them kind of like a part-time job that's not paid. I mean, it's just volunteer experience. Right. And they go with a job coach and do all that sort of thing. And so now all of a sudden we're trying to figure out, well, does she need a nurse with her full time? Because I've been homeschooling. We haven't had to worry about it. I've been able to manage it. Yeah. Well, the job coach isn't liable for medical things. And so they said the most a job coach could do if it was lunchtime, all they could say is, "Amanda, it's lunchtime. Don't forget to take your insulin."
Right. That doesn't sound
I was like, well, that doesn't really work, not at all. And so even after she turns 21, when she gets a part-time job, what does that support look like,
So you have to be thinking about the horizon for Omnipod when it comes out, right?
Oh, for sure. Yes. And we went with the Omnipod just because, like, motor-wise, I didn't think she could manage a tube. Yeah. I mean, she can go to the bathroom by herself. I'm not regressing on that. We're not messing with that.
Kari's like, listen, if a tube makes me have to go back in the bathroom again, it's a non-starter.
A non-issue. We're not doing that.
That's super interesting. Yeah.
So by the time it was, we were talking about getting a pump, it was like, do I even have to go to the pump class? Because I know if we're doing a pump, I want the Omnipod, no, you still have to go. And
I'd be very interested to see how an algorithm works for you and for her. Because she's on such similar, meals. And am I hearing like you can count on her to eat them?
Oh yeah, she's got a fantastic appetite. Okay. Yeah, she eats really well. She's not picky. I mean, she's easier to feed than my son.
Right.
So
I'm just thinking. I'm thinking maybe that ends up being really something spectacular for you, because maybe there is a way to set up like, this is what this is the meal. This is how much insulin. This is what time. Maybe you could end up giving her, it's funny. I was going to call it freedom, but she doesn't see it as that, right? It's not to her. She's not restricted. Yeah.
It would be for me.
Yeah, I was going to say the freedom would be for you. I'm so used to thinking of it the other way. And then as I said, I was like, oh, that freedom's for you, not for her. Yeah.
I know.
What is your husband's level of understanding of the diabetes stuff? Can he do it as well as you?
No, but he's getting there.
Good.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, I'm around it literally 24/7.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I hear that. I went out the other day. Arden was busy at home, and we were like at the end of a pump site maybe, and I had to go. I had to go forage for food, so I was wrapped up and out. and her blood sugar was going up. And it's funny, I was in the store and I didn't take my phone out of my pocket because I don't know, like it was in my head, like, don't touch your phone, like don't get involved in touching more things than you have to while you're here. And I got out to the car and got myself cleansed. And I pulled my phone out and her blood sugar is going up. And I came home and I looked at her and I was like, what's happening here? I was like, nobody did anything. I was like, it can't always be me. I was like, Daddy was out killing a deer to bring home for us.
Right.
I mean, I was really just in the grocery store trying not to get, coronavirus and buy a pack of chicken breasts, but still,
exactly. It felt idea. Like
well, it was
slaughtering the animal.
It's the first time it felt like I was out hunting. That's for sure. At the grocery store. And she's like, I didn't hear it. I was like, what?
Yeah.
You had to have heard it, right? No, I didn't. I've been concentrating on my schoolwork and blah, blah. And I'm like, my phone's muted. And I was like, okay, all reasonable reasons why she didn't hear it. But like, I don't know. Like I had that feeling like, all right, well, that can't be like that. Like I have to be able to leave the house and you have to have the next expectation that I won't see my phone maybe once or twice, but you're just on the hook. You're really, Kari, right. You really are. I feel for you here. I don't know what the right word is, but you have my whatever it is.
Sympathy. Yeah, go ahead.
Empathy, sympathy, concern. I don't know. Well, you definitely made a lot of people feel good about their situation today. That's for sure.
Well, if I can help one person.
Well, I feel like you've helped a number of thousands of them. They were just like, my shit's not that bad. Yeah, no kidding. Well, listen, I want to kind of finish with this idea. I say all the time, I just got done saying it to a buddy of mine the other day. I was like, until your kid has something like this, you don't really know perspective the way I know perspective, but you know perspective way better than I do.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I felt like I already had it. I mean, come on.
Right.
Like, really, do I need more?
But my question is, do you have more?
I don't think so.
Down syndrome gave you all the perspective you can get in life?
All that I needed, yeah. It prepared me for the type 1. How about that?
No, yeah.
No, I mean, we were already on a different path to begin with, I
was really just wondering, like, is there perspective beyond what people living with diabetes have? And apparently there's a ceiling.
I think mine is just long-term. I mean, literally long-term. I mean, for everybody that has those little kids and they feel horrible about them having to manage it themselves when they get older, I mean, at least Amanda doesn't have that burden. Somebody will have to do it for her. Okay. So she's fine with life.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, really, she doesn't know any different at this point, and she doesn't seem to
mind, and she rolls with it.
Right. Yeah. She doesn't. I mean, I've never seen her like, oh, don't you remember Mom before this was like this? There's none of that. It's just, this is what we're doing now. And okay, if that's what you're doing, that's what I'm doing. And she really does just roll with it.
Well,
so from my point of view.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Your point of view.
Well, I think it's just, like I said before, I can't lose it because she's fine with it. Mm-hmm. So I have to be fine with it.
Do you do anything for your mental health? Do you speak to a therapist, or like, is there something out back you shoot a gun at or something like that? Like, what do you do?
I don't. I should probably have one on retainer. No, I mean, literally, I think it's just my personality. I don't know. And like I said, I mean, I've had her for 18 years. Mm-hmm. So, I can't be in therapy my whole life.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
you're 80, your therapist is 110, and you're like, this isn't fair. And they're like, you say that every week.
Exactly. We'd be like an old married couple.
Yeah, I guess at some point.
So at some point.
Yeah, you really do.
It's just, yeah. And so, I mean, I have my moments, and I do really well for a while, and then I mean, with the Down syndrome, I never even thought about that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's funny because now I think of my friends that just have Down syndrome, right? I mean, it's like, well, look at them. What are they complaining about?
Those lucky mother
I mean,
kids just have Down syndrome. I'll bleep that out, but that's how I see you in your car looking over there like, there they are.
I know, whatever. And so now that is even taken a back burner. You know what I mean? It's like, whatever, it's just Down syndrome. That's fine. But my life now looks totally different. Yeah. Even than it did before.
Well, we named the podcast episode together a minute ago, by the way, because this one's going to be called Perspective Sealing, just so you know. That's what.
There you go.
I was like, that's exactly what this is. You've literally have so much clarity. There's no more left to get. It's. I mean, I guess we shouldn't say that, like, your leg is going to get like lopped off in a car accident or something like that. You're like, doesn't matter to me.
Bring it on.
You're like the end of a war movie where they're like shooting the guy in all of his limbs. He's like, whatever, my buddies got out. I don't care.
That's right. That's right.
My God, Kara. At least you're laughing.
I know. Well, what are you going to do? I mean, you either laugh or cry. So, and I've definitely cried, that's for sure. But you can't stay like that forever. No,
I couldn't imagine. I mean, that would really ruin you and her and everybody, right? If you just, if you got caught up in it, or if you were unlucky enough to be an anxious or depressed person by nature. I mean, really, this would grab you and just shake you.
Kind of push you over the edge.
No, you would think, right? Do you know anybody who's in that situation who has their own, who isn't, a glass is half full person to begin with, who then gets the Down syndrome put on top of them? Because, I mean, you see it with diabetes a lot. There's, for every person who comes on here is like, oh, I figured out how to use the glucose monitor and it's made a big difference, Scott. And I'm pre-bolusing. There's 10 people out there like, yeah, I'm too anxious to pre-bolus and I'm depressed. And, like that kind of stuff is more prevalent than I think some of us give credit for. But do you see that in that community too? Or there's some people who are just beaten by this in a way that's hard to put into words?
And not in my circle.
Okay. But I guess too, that those are people who were reaching out already to make a circle. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And now our kids are 18, 20, 21. And, maybe if I knew them when their kids were born, because we all have those birth stories where it's just like, oh, like some people knew, some people didn't. And I guess if you're not one that can handle it, you have already dealt with that.
Oh, that didn't occur to me. Did you know before Amanda was born?
We did.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you had
we
time
did
for
know
that too, to think about it.
Yeah. And some people will say, oh, I wish I did.
Mm.
And I don't know what I would have done, but for us, well, we just wanted to know what the sex was going to be, like with my son, we didn't find out. It was like, oh, our first one, we're going to be surprised, And with the next one, it was like, I'd kind of like to know so I could at least plan a little bit. Yeah. And, when we first did the ultrasound, they thought it was even worse than Down syndrome again. They thought she had hydrocephalus.
Okay.
And then they said, well, maybe hydrocephalus and Down syndrome. And so when the results came back for Down syndrome, it was kind of the same feeling. It was like, oh, well, if it's just Down syndrome, then that's fine. I'm going
to ask you a personal question.
We can handle that.
And if you don't want to answer it, don't answer it. And if you want me to cut it right out, I absolutely will. But did you consider ending the pregnancy?
No, never.
Okay.
No. I mean, our OB said, I'm your doctor first.
Right.
And I'm her doctor second. So you're at that time that if you want to, you have so many weeks to decide. Mm-hmm. But no, we would have never.
Gotcha.
No.
Is that a decision based in belief, religion, just being a parent? Like what was your perspective on making that decision or not even considering it?
I think both. I mean, we are fairly religious.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was for sure a part of it. It was like, well, if this is our child, then this is our child,
okay.
And it's already your child. So, I mean, I don't want to judge somebody else if that was their decision, but
That's how it
who's
struck
to
you.
say that,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, whatever it is, that's your kid. You can't decide what they're going to be like in 20 years. Why decide before they're even born?
100%. No, I was just wondering. I was just wondering where. I mean, because it has to come up. Like somebody had to say it to you, whether it was you or a doctor, or that's what I was thinking. Is that it didn't?
Right.
Yeah.
We only had one person actually verbally say, you could just terminate and move on.
Okay. Was
And I was shocked.
Family member?
Shocked. What's that?
Was it a family member?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought, are you kidding? And I just had to chalk it up to stupidity. I mean, like, how dare you?
I wonder how many people just heard that and thought, oh, I'll maybe I won't get so upset next time somebody asks me if I gave my kid too much sugar, because it's basically the same, it's a similar statement, right? It's
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Your life has been interesting. And
it has.
How old are you?
It has. I'm 45.
Oh my gosh. You're 45 in age and like 213 in wisdom and experience. You should be a cleric.
Well,
People should come to you and ask their life questions. I'm gonna let you get out of this in a second, but do you find that other things in life just aren't overwhelming the way you see maybe sometimes people, like on social media are thrown by the simplest things? Sometimes do you find that those things just bounce off you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, even, my son played select soccer for years, so super competitive, super high level. And the parents on the sidelines were just, I mean, they're sports parents. But when you come from a soccer field where there's kids that can't even walk, like mine she can run,
right.
But there's kids on the team that are using walkers or needing to be pushed in a wheelchair to participate.
Yep.
You kind of stand on the sidelines and go, well, you know what? Like, they're pretty gifted.
Yeah.
And they're really talented and they're in great shape. And as long as none of them lose a tooth during the game, we're good, and they'd be like, how can you be so calm? Like, well, what difference does this game make? I think I've heard you say, like, even for a baseball game, like, I don't know what the score is. I'm just watching them play, I mean, I would know what the score was, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
Like, they're out there and they're amazing. And be grateful that you have a kid that can play at this level.
No, I agree with you. I feel badly sometimes for people when they're so wrapped up in something that I think is incredibly momentary and isn't going to matter, in a day, let alone a week or a month or a year. And at the same time, I get it. Like and I'm happy for them. Their lives are not encumbered in a way where they have to think that way or that they're drawn to think that way. But no, right. I've definitely had people say things to me, and in the back of your head, you just think like, if I give my kid too much insulin, something bad happens to her. It's hard for me to get upset about what you're talking about. Like, I feel like I have a different perspective. I don't have yours. Yours is super,
right.
Yeah, yours is like the Avengers of perspective.
But the type 1 diabetes just makes it that much more, I mean, it was there to begin with, but now it's life or death, Yeah.
I'll tell you something. If it means anything to people with younger kids, I think the way that we've dealt with my son playing baseball is one of the reasons why he's still playing it. Because at no point during this time have we treated this moment as the most important moment. It's always been now for later. And, you're learning something today. You're getting better at something today. And when you take away the immediacy of the need for success, then it can look like a long game. Do you know what I mean? Like you can say to yourself, I'm working out on, I don't know, a part of my body or a skill at age 15 that I really don't need until I'm 20. So I have 5 years to develop it and get it right. Because if I don't succeed with whatever success looks like when I'm 17 in a high school baseball game, who cares? I'm really just trying to be ready to play in college. And if you can step back and see the big picture like that, not only does it make the entire thing more enjoyable, it actually gives you the opportunity to succeed. Because when you start measuring success every Saturday afternoon, that's a fool's errand, and it knocks most people out.
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, it knocks most people out. At some point, they have a failure, which everyone's going to have, and they see it as such a treadstone moment for them that they think, oh, that's it. I'm not right for this. I can't do it. And then they give up instead of just it feeling like a building block. Anyway, I'm a genius when it comes to parenting is what I've just got done saying. I really understand.
Well, as am I. Oh, so you're in good company.
Damn right. All right, Kari. All right. So,
no, I mean, I love it. My college student is a totally different person than he would have been had we not been in this situation.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that for certain. What's your son going to college for?
Physical therapy.
Huh? Good for him. He enjoys that?
Yeah, he's nice. Thinking physical. He does. Yeah, he likes the athletic part of it. So maybe like athletic training. He hasn't decided. But so, kinesiology kind of covers a lot of that. So,
well, listen, as long as he can get a job, because you need somebody to leave that house. Listen, you're definitely leaving, just so you know. Mommy and Daddy love you, but there's no way you're living here much longer. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. You were getting the hell out of here, just so you know. We're going to turn your bedroom into a crying room. Just we're going to put a lot of pillows and a futon and so anyway, all right. Well, you were delightful. I really appreciate you wanting to do this and taking the time to do it and getting up so early in the morning and being delightful.
Thank you.
This. Now, your day is like, can you go back to sleep now, or you're done? You're up, right?
Oh, no. Yeah, so I'm up.
You're like, sleep? What's that?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I really appreciate that you found the show and that you reached out and wanted to be a part of it. I've had a really good time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a huge source of information for me.
I'm glad.
So it's been fantastic.
I'm really glad. Hey, huge thanks to Kari for coming on the show and sharing her life as the parent of a child with type 1 diabetes and Down syndrome. I'd also like to thank Omnipod for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Please go to myomnipod.com/juicebox to learn more about my daughter's tubeless insulin pump. And of course, Dexcom.com/juicebox to get started with that Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. If you're a U.S. veteran, your Dexcom G6 is now covered at 100%. Go to my link and check it out right there through the VA hospital, dexcom.com/juicebox. It's a big deal. Congratulations to all of you. Do you have a great diabetes practitioner, or would you like to find out about one? I have a link for you. Juicebox Podcast is proud to present juiceboxdocs.com. It's a great list of doctors that have been suggested by listeners of the show. They send me the doctors. I make the list. That's it. That's how it works. So if you have a great doc, send them over. And if you're looking for one, the list is growing every day. There may just be one near you. I just added some today for Michigan, North Carolina, and Switzerland, I think. Juiceboxdocs.com. And if you're looking for those diabetes pro tip episodes, they start at episode 210 here in the podcast. You can always listen in your podcast player. But if you're looking for a quick reference for them, diabetesprotip.com. It's also a handy little way to share them with others. 2 more things, then I'll let you go. Please, if you're listening in a podcast app, and you probably should be because it's really handy, but if you are and you haven't subscribed to the show, please hit subscribe. It helps other people find the show. Moves me up in, you want to hear the back room of this? If you subscribe to the show, which doesn't cost you anything, the show gets pushed up in search results. That's it. That's how simple it is. So the next time somebody types in type 1 diabetes into a podcast player, what they get back is the Juicebox Podcast. So if you'd like the show to be found more readily, subscribing is an easy way to help, and it makes actually a really large impact on the searchability of the show. Last thing, data. How do I want to say this? First of all, I should probably say data so the data people don't get all upset at me. But we get to answers more quickly when we have more data. That's how science works. And that's why I hope you'll consider supporting the T1D Exchange and their registry program. And it kind of maybe sounds scary, like they want your data, but they ask these fairly banal questions about living with type 1 diabetes. But from those answers, which by the way is completely anonymous and 100% HIPAA compliant, but from those answers, they derive data or data, depending on who you are, I guess. Or maybe right now you're thinking, no, Scott, it's definitely data. They derive this data that helps drive innovation in type 1 diabetes. I don't know what the data is going to do next. I can tell you it's already made impacts on things that have helped people living with type 1 diabetes. I've talked about them before, but the ADA sets a goal, A1C, and doctors go by that goal. And data that the T1D Exchange collected and made sense of helped the ADA lower that goal. And that's a healthy thing for people. Dexcom being covered by Medicare, I think it's Medicare, that came in part from that data. It helped move the process along. Test strips that are now covered by all kinds of different insurance plans that weren't covered before. That also happened because of this data. And more is coming, and more is possible. And the more data they have, the better case they can make. And the better case they can make, the more impact they're going to have on the lives of people living with type 1 diabetes. Now, why am I telling you about this? It's a simple and easy way to support research and the show, and it doesn't cost you a dime. You can drop out of it whenever you want. Like say 6 months from now, you're like, oh, I should have never done that for reasons I can't imagine why. But let's say you thought that. Just tell them that's it. My anonymous data, I don't want you to have it anymore. And they'll purge it, and that'll be it. So anyway, if you're still listening, you might actually be interested. Go to t1dexchange.org/juicebox. It took me less than 10 minutes to join the registry. You have to be a U.S. citizen who has type 1 or who is the caregiver or parent of a person with type 1. But that's it. Less than 10 minutes, you'll help move this forward and you'll help support the show. T1D Exchange needs up to 6,000 participants. And there are easily more than 6,000 people listening to this podcast. So if half of you guys went and did it, it would be amazing. If all of you went and did it, I'll tell you what, if you guys do that, if somehow 6,000 people, say you guys go and fill the registry at T1D Exchange, I will move the show to 3 episodes a week instead of 2. Because a lot of people ask me to do that and it's a lot more work and it's a lot more of my time, so I can't do it. But if you guys filled the registry, I'd be able to afford to do that. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Support the show, support research. Honestly, you're just doing a great thing that it supports the show as a bonus. See what you think when you get there. I'll talk to you soon.